So we're going to look a little bit at some things that can make construction a little bit easier, given especially on this project where you cannot cut curves and you can't cut anything off. And so these are ways you can slice into things but still have a finished edge. So let's say you want to slit, but you're not allowed to cut anything except rectangles and squares. So I'm going to show you how to do this, which is pretty easy. There's a trick to it. So we're going to put these two pieces together and put a slit in here. I have them right sides together. I'll have to think, is that right? Yes. It's right sides together. And I'm going to make a line. Actually, I can make this line any direction I want and any shape I want. The thing that makes this nice is that that keeps it stable to make it easy to do is that you make the mark and you stitch it before you cut it out. So I'm going to put this mark right here. I'm going to cut this one a diagonal instead of a straight just to have it different. And I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to stitch around the outside like here, but not in the middle of it. I'm just going to stitch right around it and make like a little outline. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to start folding it in half like this. Make sure it's lined up and make a little snip to get started. This is where the little scissors will come in really handy. And I'm going to slide this in there. I'm going to snip it all the way right up to the corner. Not through the stitching, but right up to it. Right up to it. And I'll do the same thing over here. So you can put this anywhere you want on any shape that you want to, and it will be all finished. So you can see I'm snipping right up to that. So now if I turn this inside out, and I press it, you have your own little finished edge. It's a very nice way to finish something. It looks really good. And of course you have to press it. You'll see me pressing a lot, so I'm going to do a whole video on pressing. I'm going to press this thing flat in one direction first and then roll it back the other way. It'll lay flatter if I do that. Because ideally I don't want to see either fabric on the opposite side. There might be a time when you want to. And one of these fabrics is much thicker than the other, so I might actually want to go in and top stitch it all when I'm done, but I'm not going to do it for the demo. I use a lot of steam when I'm pressing too to get things nice and flat. And I pressed the whole thing very good even before I stitched it, so it was all flat. So now look at that. It's a little crookedy right here. But isn't that nice? There's this great little slit opening. And there it is, all clean. Not nice?
Very nice.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So you might want to do something like that where you want to make a slit. It comes in really handy. You could do a neckline that way or whatever. There's also being able to just taking a strip, stitching it down a side. You can make a strip real quick. I'm going to put a safety pin in there just through one. This is an easy way to turn stuff. Put a safety pin through one side and you push it down the middle. And almost out of water. But then I have strips that I can start to do something with. It still needs to get pressed. It's rolling a little bit too much, but it's more or less there. So other things is you can do, this is just like you can always finish your edges by putting two squares together, stitching them all the way around the outside the way you would as if you were going to make like a pillowcase. It's just stitched around the edge. Normally I would have you clip your corners, but you're not allowed to cut anything off of your square, so you have to leave it in for this project. I did leave a little opening down at the bottom, And I have like some digitally printed and then manipulated fabric on one side, and then just some other fabric. This weird stretchy turquoise stuff that I like is around. And turn it all inside out. I do want to get these corners popped out real good, and sometimes using a pin to pull them out so you get a nice sharp corner is a good idea. Right, so then all the edges are finished, right? There's that little opening down here, but I can open that up and I can stitch that. I can whip stitch that by hand, but it's very little, all the edges. So like on some of those things we were looking at, like let's say this is the front of the garment, it comes up here, and I take a strip and it puts around here, all of a sudden I have a collar, or this way, and it's kind of cool. Alright, so then some other things that you can do that are pretty simple to finish off edges. One is to make a slit or an opening. You basically make a seam, you put it together, and you just stop where you want the slit to start, and then you flip it over, press it really good, and then top stitch it, and there you go. You have it. You have a slit or opening. You can do it down anything you want. Actually, the shirt I have is like that. They just stop the stitching right here, and then it opens up, and that's it. So it's actually very easy to add a slit to any seam, pretty much anywhere. You just stop stitching, press the seam allowance, top stitch it, it's done. The other thing you can do is like on the top of this piece here, you can see another way to add pieces together. You can add another, you know, just stitch a seam, capture this seam into this, and then top stitch it over, and then it's all caught into there and clean. If you have an outside edge, you can bind it. This is a straight edge, which all of your projects on this project will most likely be straight edges because it's rectangles and squares. Other things you can do, other ways of working with squares, this is called a godet. I showed you some in the PowerPoint, the presentation about the project. So this is another one, like this is just your basic seam. It's two rectangles stitched together, but it's stopped right here. And then when you stop in there, there's inserted, this is actually a square inside of here. This is the square, and then it's been folded. And it makes this insert, and it gives you like this nice bit of fullness that comes out. You'll see a lot of like really classical jackets that like flare out to the side or something. They often have one of these sewn in there. It's called a godet. And you can look up in your Art of Manipulation book on how to create that. But that's a really cool way to add some fullness and put some big things in, fullness into there. Let's see, other ones you can do, once you have the straps, you could, so I really encourage you to just think about structure and sort of make stuff up. So this is like the strap that I just showed you to how to make. One edge is actually finished, so this could be a finished edge. In order to hook it, put it into something, this is just a seam, two pieces of fabric with this stuck in between. You can do it all in one line of stitching. You just make like a little sandwich where you have your base fabric, you stick in the strap, you put another one on top, and you top stitch it. So this could work for a number of things. So if I wanted it then to be like, this is the strap that's the top of a dress. It's all cleaned up and in there. You don't see any ugly strap edges hanging off. So then I would just press it this way. But it's sort of inserted into the seam. So not just with straps, but with anything. You can insert something so that something else comes out. There's another one of those, like here. So this is one where it's basically two pieces being stitched together, but it's inserted this thing. And this is kind of interesting. It's like, instead of it being just, this is sort of like the pillow, the square that I turned inside out, except for I made an extra line here and I turned it out in and out through one of these corners. So this is kind of actually seam allowance that can go into this. So I can put this in here. I make a sandwich. So this is inserted into the seam. There's a sandwich with this here and this here. I don't know if they can hear Ava's upstairs, but it's cute. And then, where'd my other pin go? And then this one here. And if I were to stitch that all down, this would make a seam and this could come out. And you wonder, well, what would that be for? Well, let's say this is the front of a jacket. This could be, it could go this way, where that's the lining, and then this could be like a closure of a jacket front over here. Or his does have a little opening here, so I could, where's my little strap go? Here, I could take this, and this could run through here, and then it could tie or something like that. So you could figure out, there's different things you can make. It also could come up this way, and maybe it comes this way, and you just have like a little peekaboo hole, or there's a pocket in there or something like that. So seams, anytime you have a seam, if you leave gaps, things can happen there, and you just build it right into the seam. The other thing is sometimes there's, like the seam is this is just the seam by itself, but sometimes the seam allowance is interesting. So instead of having a clean seam like this, you might say, oh, that's kind of cool, and then it made all this fuzzy stuff on the outside. So there's my seam. It has like a little opening for a pocket, but also has a fuzzy edge, a very feminine looking piece. And one other thing, let's see if I have the right stuff to show you this, is that you can often do a closure on the bottom of a piece, or like on a sleeve or a cuff, but I'm not sure if I have the right